So I'm here with the woman who made me say, okay, it's time to do this video. I'm here with an islander, Miss Darling Banega. Say hi.
Hi.
And I'm going to read you guys a post that Darling put on Facebook. That's the reason why. That's what sparked me wanting to do this video. I'm posting these things because I keep searching for our culture and I'm not finding nothing that set me apart. For what I understand, I am Carib. My culture is punta and it's food. We English-speaking islander happen to have the same habits British used to have or still do, and we call that culture. 2,000 black Caribs was left on the island, abandoned. Those are my original ancestors. I'm considering myself Garifuna.
Exactly.
Okay, darling, can you talk about what made you write this post? What made you first of all start searching about who you are as a black woman?
Okay, so, my name is Darlene Banegas, right? I am a founder of a little foundation named Hoy Por Ti, Roatan Hoy Por Ti. And so, as I go through this process, I understand more of who I'm becoming, right? So, as I grew up, for example, I did not grow up on this island. I'm an islander. I was born here, but we was taken to the mainland for education because apparently education in 1990s was not as good as now, right? So they took us over there, and then I come back speaking pure Spanish. I didn't know. Knowing my English was there, but it was not understandable. People used to ask me where I'm from. Well, I'm like, I'm from here, but I grew up on the mainland. So as time passed by, I didn't care much about culture, but now I do. I'm wondering, what is it that we are, for example, what is our culture? What is it that we really do? And I'm talking about, we call ourselves Black Islanders. No. Yes, we're Black Islanders, but they're Spanish Islanders. There's other type of Islanders, but then our real culture, what is it that we celebrate? Why do we celebrate Maple? Why do we celebrate Platpole? Why we do harvest? Those are not a black culture thing. Those are English because I research. They're European games. So that's not me. I'm not a European. So I go into the African culture. They're crazy. They got colors, they dance, they touch the drums. So that I compare that to the Garifunas. So I feel like I'm connected more to the Garifuna culture. But I'm not fully answered, so I'm looking for answers for all my questions. Like, where is it that I have to go? Why is it that we celebrate Maple when it's not? No, it's not. I just feel like it's not. That's not it. It's okay. It's fun. We adapt to people's system, whatever, however we, because it becomes culture, but those are habits. So what is your answer?
You say that, and I've heard other people say that there is no black culture on the island, like besides the Garifuna culture. And I, as a person who was born and raised in New York, who visited Roatan every summer with my family, I got very confused when I started hearing other islanders talk about we don't have a culture. Because when I get off of that plane in Roatan, I feel the vibes. I feel the culture. When you get off of the plane on the mainland in Honduras, it's a different type of feeling. And what causes that different feeling is the culture where you're at. So I say that there is a black culture on the island, because if it wasn't that way, there wouldn't be this, I don't know if it's this hospitality, this island hospitality, or there is a culture here. But I also am confused about how to really pinpoint the Afro-Caribbean culture on this island. And that's why I ask for help, y'all. Because if you don't know something, you need to ask for help, seek advice. And so after what Darling wrote, I reached out to a very known islander, an ex-politician, well, current politician, because he's still running. But I'm going to allow him to introduce himself to you guys. And he's going to help us fill in the blanks.
Right.
Okay? All right, y'all. So I'm here with Mr. Dorn Ebanks. How you doing?
Oh, good, Audrey. I'm doing quite fine, and thanks for this invite.
Thank you for coming. I know you're a busy man, so I'm so grateful to have you here and to help us fill in the blanks because the questions that Darling have and that I have, it's not just us. And that's why I invited you here, Darling, because you represent the confusion that so many people, so many islanders have here on the island.
Exactly.
You know, so Dorn, I want to first introduce yourself. Who are you?
Okay, Dorn Ebanks, born in Roatan, but 400 years ago, my DNA was in Nigeria, from the Igbo tribe. I had a rencounter in 2018, and arriving to my motherland, the mother continent, Africa, specifically Nigeria. There's a feeling that you have to experience. You cannot really explain it because we were ripped away from our land, from our culture, from our people, against our will. And when that happened, trust me, there's like a spirit, in the mid-Atlantic, especially in the Middle Passage, that is still lingering around. We didn't want to leave. We didn't want to exit Africa, but we were enslaved. We were brought here, I would say kidnapped. And guess what? We're here now, but we're still in pursuit, and we're on a quest, and we're in search of who we really are. I'm Dorn Ebanks, and that is my colonial name. My afro descendant name would be Emeka. Emeka.
Awesome.
Right.
So Dorn had the opportunity to travel to Africa, right? Correct.
Yep.
And would you say that trip to Africa sparked your passion to like research more about who you are as a black man, as a black islander?
Yes, it did. Years ago, I became enlightened about me, being me, Dorn Ebanks. And being a child here in Roatan, there was a lot of conflicting events that really confused me
Okay.
as a child, where we saw racism here in Roatan, but it was very subtle, very subliminal, and it was swept under the carpet. Let's say, for instance, in certain communities here, when a black person would go to visit or they would go to work, and the family was European descendant, guess what? There was a plate for you as a black person, specific plate. There was a spoon for you as a black person. There was a fork for you as a black person, and there was a cup or a glass.
Here on the island?
Here on these islands, these here be islands, And how do we know that? Because there were black maids, or Afro-descendant servants, we say, or my maid, they would say, she would disclose this information that the mistress of the house or the boss of the house, she'd tell them, whenever you see black people come here, you be sure that's their cup, that's their glass, that's their fork, and that's their plate. You don't make them eat out of my plate, the plate that I have for my family or what have you. This is being said because it had to be said, and with no apologies. And they know that's a fact, and I'm not in pursuit of any kind of conflict or confrontation, but I do understand that there's a lot of race relations that need to be addressed here in Roatan, and most of our people are trying to blindside it purposely, but we cannot do it. If we're going to move forward as a people here in Roatan, when I say as a people, so with diversity and inclusion, between diversity plus inclusion, then we must go to the table and have this conversation.
Can you expand further on diversity and inclusion? What's the difference?
Well, diversity, let's say for instance, is you get an invitation to the party, or you get an invitation to the meeting. But when you arrive to the meeting, you're just addressed as a person that is there. You're there, but then you're not visible and you cannot participate. Inclusion means that, okay, diversity taking place. You got the invitation. Inclusion means you can sit to the table and then you're a decision maker at the table. You're invited to give your opinion. You're invited to contribute with ideas. You're invited to create, I would say, the spirit of imagination on how to help your people move forward. But guess what? In Roatan, we find a lot of diversity, but not inclusion. Even in Honduras, blacks say, oh, in Honduras somos diversos, pero no inclusivos, no incluyente. So they say diversity, but when it comes to black people opportunity in these Honduras, we cannot find it yet. It's still hidden. Let's say Triunfo de la Cruz, Torna Bay, then you got Sambo Creek, you got Corozal, you go down to Trujillo, you go Santa Fe, Colon. We might be living on the beaches, but we're not enjoying the benefits or the profits of the beaches. So therefore, you call that diversity, but there's no inclusion. In other words, let me put it, or let me express it or say it in an island way. Diversity means they invite you to the party, but you cannot dance. Inclusion is being able to dance. But diversity is you come to the party, but you can't dance. That is not inclusion. So diversity plus inclusion must be two elements that are very, very needed and necessary at this time.
Awesome. Thanks.
So that means we were obligated to play maypole and platpole?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Okay. Those things were handed down to entertain us. Those things were handed down to distract us. Those things were handed down so that we could not move forward. We were so busy celebrating that we don't have time to commemorate. Oh, we're celebrating the slave trade, abolition. Oh, we're celebrating emancipation of slavery, or the abolition of slavery in the Caribbean. 1834 it took place in August. We don't have to celebrate that. We have to commemorate it and continue to move forward in demanding reparations for the descendants of the slave trade and also of the free labor on the plantations in Jamaica, St. Vincent's, etc. But guess what? Our people are still here suffering the consequences of the profit that the colonial criminals obtained during the slave trade and also during the institution of black slavery in the Caribbean. They're still profiting from it. They're still privileged, but then we're still suffering the consequences. And I must say that the other community that is most friendly to us is the Hispanic community. But the colonial descendants have managed to separate us because they know that if Hispanics and blacks were to get together, it would be like, I would say, an economic bomb that would go off that would benefit everybody. We are still being affected by the Colonial Criminal Act, from the 16th century onward. Christopher Columbus, let's say, he was the biggest criminal that ever sailed the sea, and maybe a dumb navigator also. And when I say a dumb navigator, how could you try to go to India and then end up in the Americas? I mean, you can't plot a course. He's the dumbest individual, but the most evil person that ever sailed the seas. He discovered America. People were already here. So therefore, I do think strongly, in order for our people to move forward, we must find out who we are first. And we're not English.
Okay, so Dorn, talking about who we are, I want to go back to what Darling was saying, how she identifies more with the Garifuna culture. Okay, so, but we know who Garifuna people are, more or less. Where do the black people from the island come from? Like, besides, we know we have African roots, we know we're Igbo, but where do we come from?
Okay. Black people here on the island, let's say the English-speaking black people, for those who are Anglophile, okay, where do we come from? The 99% of us descend from Nigeria, from the Igbo tribe. And how do I know this? We have done research, some serious in-depth research. Okay, black people have a journey, the English-speaking black people here. Let's say, for instance, during the slave trade, the mid-Atlantic slave trade, the 90%, more than the 90% of the people that were brought to the Jamaican labor plantation, slave labor plantation, they were from the Igbo tribe, right? So if the 90+% of them, which will almost 98% of them, were brought from Nigeria to Jamaica, and when emancipation took place, they were free 2 years after 1833. they begin to move around the Caribbean, and they travel to the Cayman Islands. Some of them followed their old colonial criminal masters, right? And some went on their own. Those that were more proactive and those that were more determined, which I descend. In other words, my DNA survived the Middle Passage, so I'm not giving up. And I'm not going to acquiesce, and I'm not going to be accommodating. I'm a fighter. And I'm not out there looking for a fight, but I will defend myself. And I want people to know that. Number two, after the Cayman settlement, then some decided to move towards Roatan, Guanaja, and Utila. So that's where our people begin the journey of arriving to Roatan. But prior to that, the Garifuna people were already here after being exiled from St. Vincent. Is that so?
Yes.
Right.
1797 to be correct.
Right,
To be
right.
exact. Yeah.
So the Garifuna had a head start on us in settling a community, and the Garifunas were not enslaved, right? Because they fought back. They fought against their colonial criminal masters. They refused to go, under that, I would say, evil, wicked serfdom, And they fought and they fought and they managed, right, to be so rebellious that the French and English could not manage or hold them or administer them or control them. So he said, the best thing, let's get rid of these people. Let's exile them out of St. Vincent, which was good. So they resettled in Punta Gorda that we know today, and they begin to disperse throughout the North Atlantic coast of Honduras. But we do have a common story. Garifunas are Yoruba's descendant, which is one of the strongest tribes within the Afro-Nigerian, geographical basin. And then we have the Igbo. So we are two tribes, but from the same country, Nigeria. So I'm Igbo descendant, and you're a Yoruba descendant. But the Garifuna has a little less African in him by having the Carib Taino Indian, right?
The Arawak Indian.
The Arawak Indian within him. So the Garifuna is not like 100% Afro. He has the Carib Indian within him. Now, I'm 100% Afro. Some might say, oh, well, there was some grandmother, some great-grand. I'm not digging up people to find out, that I don't find significance in wanting to be connected to some ancestral individual from the British Empire. No. But there are groups of people out here today that are descendants of Europe or the Anglo or the British, that they feel like segregation and racism should rule the day in Roatan. You have people that behind closed doors that are still addressing us as niggers. They would not go public with it. They have, those niggers here and those niggers in Cox and Hole, those niggers in Flowers Bay. Especially when political time comes, they will go around hugging those people, and then they say, I just give those niggers a couple of lempiras. I just give those niggers I throw a party for them. They were having fun. Yeah, I give those. That has to stop, And we're not out begging that nor demanding that. We are preparing at this time to create our own commonwealth. And when I say our own commonwealth, I feel like the Garifunas, right, and the Igbo, the Yoruba and the Igbo descendant should get together and create a common bond and create a commonwealth. And this is not a racist approach. It's a protectionist approach. Because look, they're killing us on the mainland with no accountability.
Yeah.
How many Garifuna leadership has been murdered in cold blood? And what has the government of Honduras done?
Nothing.
Nothing. But I think that we have come on different ships, but now we're in the same boat.